Hey everyone, Chris here. So, first time I tried to brew myself coffee, I brewed myself hot water. Now I actually have coffee. We're about to start looking at the reveal video for the Druid. So many questions to be answered. Number one, is the prohibition against metal armor gone for good? Number two, Circle of the Land got big improvements. Is that going to stick? Number three, Circle of Stars, moving over from Tasha's. Did they make any changes to it? Because we didn't see that in Unearthed Arcana. Number four, Circle of the Sea Druid, brand new. And, all new features. Did they stay with the playtest version, or are we going to get something else? And conjure spells. We saw big changes to the conjure spells in the Unearthed Arcana. I don't know if they're going to talk about them in today's video, but I hope they do. And then I can talk about them with you. And there was something else about druids we were wondering about. I can't seem to remember what it was. I feel like it was very important. But anyways, wild shape. Of course, we're going to talk about wild shape. And I should mention that I am participating in early access for the Player's Handbook. So I have the Player's Handbook. I've read the Player's Handbook. And I cannot reveal any contents of the Player's Handbook. So the purpose of these videos, which is just about to start, is to see what they say and respond to that. So here we go. That was good timing.
Hello everyone, today we are talking about the Druid. There is a ton of new in the Druid.
We took a careful look at our nature friend, the Druid, and looked at every root of its tree, cultivated its garden, and so much now is either brand new or enhanced in this class. And a lot of this development that we did in the class, members of the D&D community were with us on the journey through the Unearthed Arcana process, but the final version has even elements that people didn't get to see as a part of the UA process. And the new starts right at first level in this class. So you now have, as a druid, a brand new feature to select at first level, Primal Order. And inside Primal Order, you get to make a choice. And that is whether you're going to be what's called a Warden, emphasizing sort of having more armor and being able to use martial weapons, or are you going to pick Magician to lean more in the nature magician direction? This choice point really gets at the fact that the Druid, going all the way back to its origins in first edition, has always had a bit of a split identity. There has been this sort of melee weapon using path as well as a full spellcasting path. And so what we've decided to do, and we did a similar thing in the new version of the Cleric, we've made it so that we forefront that choice and you get to decide as a player of the Druid which side you want to lean more on. And so if you pick Warden, you're going to get proficiency with martial weapons as well as with medium armor. Whereas if you pick Magician, you're going to get an extra cantrip. And you also gain a benefit when making Intelligence, Arcana, or Nature checks. And this benefit is getting to add your Wisdom modifier to those checks. So in a way, you're getting to use 2 ability scores when you make those checks.
Oh.
So he's revealed the whole feature there. So Primal Order at level 1 is a new feature for Druids. It's technically a buff to Druids. I don't think it's a huge buff, but he's giving you the mechanics, and they match the mechanics you saw in the playtest. So if you were reading playtest 6 or playtest 8, you already saw Primal Order and you saw what it does, and it has not changed.
Wow, okay. So they stack.
They stack. So like if you're a magician druid and you make an intelligence nature check, you're adding both your intelligence modifier and your wisdom modifier.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
And that's really focusing in on the fact that this is a druid who is all about not only nature magic, but knowledge about the natural world and about magic itself. At first level, we've also enhanced the druidic feature. This feature used to teach you the secret language of druids, which is called druidic. But this now also gives you speak with animals, because we wanted to, right there at first level, we wanted druids to have an easier path to doing this very iconic thing for druids, which is conversing with critters. And in the art for this class, you see a druid there happily surrounded by all of his animal friends. Now, the spellcasting feature is also...
All right, so Druidic, as he mentioned, you're still getting the language Druidic, but you're also getting speak with animals. And he didn't really get into how that works mechanically, but again, it is just something that has been added that wasn't in the 2014 Druid.
Still at first level for druids, and the druid's spell list, like all of our spellcasting classes, has been reviewed, expanded, and this list benefits from the additional spells that are in this player's handbook. Now, at second level, the new keeps coming.
All right, so he's not going to address the armor prohibition that was in 2014, so I will have nothing more to say on that topic.
Because we have majorly improved wild shape, which is such an iconic feature for druids. This ability to harness primal magic to adopt a beast form. So right off the bat, the major enhancement here is all druids can now wild shape as a bonus action.
Right.
This used to be a feature that belonged to the Circle of the Moon subclass, and we wanted to make it easier for all druids, regardless of subclass, to transform into a beast should they decide to use their wild shape in that way.
That's amazing.
And this leads in, how I phrased it, into the other new thing at level 2, which is the wild companion feature. Because we also wanted to give people other things to use their wild shape on. Wild shape, of course, is fun to use to turn into animals, but sometimes a druid player doesn't want their druid to be turning into animals, and so we wanted to give you other things you could use your wild shape for, and Wild Companion right away gives you that, and that allows you to use one of your uses of wild shape to cast the Find Familiar spell, because we want...
Yeah, so we saw Wild Companion in Tash's Cauldron of Everything. It was an optional class feature for druids, and then we saw in the playtest, and there had been a bit of a revision to it. In the playtest, you could use a spell slot to use it again, but if you look at the playtest, you'll see where they were heading with that design. But this is something we saw before. I hope he's not done talking about wild shape.
Wanted to make it easier for druids to have a critter friend with them. This is a feature that we introduced in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, but it is now migrated into the core so that now all druids have this option.
Perfect.
Now, there are other enhancements inside wild shape.
Okay, good.
In addition to it now being a bonus action for all druids, we have also now made it so that druids can continue to speak while they are in a wild shape form.
So that's a notable improvement as well. I know when I would play druids who were going to be using wild shape, I would always be looking for like playing Ghostwise Halflings or something that could telepathically communicate, because otherwise you couldn't. And I mean, mechanically that's not a big deal, but when you're sitting at a table and you're wanting to talk in character, you can't, which I didn't like.
Because we've really embraced the fact that when a druid adopts a wild shape, they're not literally an animal. They are this very magical person, this druid, who is simply appearing in an animal form. And so we wanted you to really be able to retain your character a bit more while you're in one of these animal shapes, so you can still participate in social encounters, even if you're there as a cat. We didn't want druids to feel like that when they shapeshift, they're now suddenly excluding themselves from certain types of encounters. As we go up in the levels with the druid, you're going to keep seeing new features because...
Okay, so maybe that's all we're going to hear about. Maybe when he talks about Circle of the Moon, we'll talk about wild shapes some more. But that's all we're going to get for now. So it is a bonus action, that's confirmed. And it is confirmed that you will be able to speak while you are wild shaped.
We didn't just add in that choice point I mentioned before in primal order at first level. You also then get carry-on options later on. So when you get up to level 7, there is the Elemental Fury feature, where you again get to decide, do you want to lean more in the direction of spell casting or in the direction of weapon use? Now, one of the fun things that we did here is this later choice is not determined by your choice at first level. You can actually mix and match. So even if you decided to go more the spellcasting route at first level, you could instead go the Primal Strike direction at level 7, or you could keep going in the spellcasting direction with Potent Spellcasting. Then at level 15, you get...
Okay, so Elemental Fury was in the playtest. Again, it's a new feature for Druid, so if you look at the 2014 Druid, you won't see it, but if you pull up playtest 6 or playtest 8, I think you'll see it in both of those if you want to take a look.
Improved Elemental Fury, and this improves whichever one of those options you chose for Elemental Fury at level 7. Now, before both of those, there's another new feature in the form of Wild Resurgence, which allows you now some flexibility in terms of how you use your spell slots and your wild shape uses, where specifically you can give yourself a wild shape use by expending a spell slot. So if you've ever played a druid and you've been in the situation where I'd really love to shapeshift again, but I'm out of wild shape uses, but I have all these spell slots sitting around, well, now you have the option of converting an unexpended spell slot into a wild shape use. But it also, once per day, can go in the other direction, where you can expend a use of your wild shape to give yourself a level 1 spell slot. Now, the farming spell slots for wild shape uses, you can just keep doing that until you've run out of spell slots. But the other direction of taking a wild shape use and turning it into a spell slot, that you can do just once and then need to complete.
And if you think about it, like, I know why they've limited it to just once per long rest, and that's because you get your wild shapes back on a short rest, but you only get your spell slots back on a long rest, and to prevent, coffee lock kind of problems, you do want to put some kind of limitation on that.
Complete a long rest before you do it again.
This is very juicy with Elemental Fury, because as you said, you're adding your Wisdom modifier to a Druid cantrip's damage, or you're choosing to get extra damage when you're using Primal Strike in a melee form. And that continues into improved Elemental Fury, where that your range of your cantrips significantly increases by 300 feet.
300 feet added to range of a cantrip. So if you think about some Druid cantrips, that's pretty juicy, right? Think about being able to do things like a Thorn Whip with a 300-foot increased range.
a really nasty spell sniper, and then also primal strikes, the damage keeps going up. So you were more in the fight as this druid, and it just gets better and better.
Now I need to. I should say that I'm going to have to look at the wording to know if, because Thorn Whip is actually a melee attack with a 30-foot range. So I'd have to look at the wording to see if it actually interacts. I'm not sure if it does or not, and I'm not going to let you know what I found out anyway.
Better, and you keep on getting to make that choice multiple times.
By the way, one reason in Improved Elemental Fury we increased the range so much there, if you choose Potent Spellcasting, for your Druid cantrips, is at level 18, you're going to get Beast Spells, which allows you to cast your spells even when you're in a wild shape form. And we wanted you to be able to easily use your cantrips once you get that at range while you're like flying around as a bird.
It's like a giant eagle. You're just like, yep. That's perfect.
Now, at level 20, the Archdruid feature has been majorly enhanced. First, whenever you roll initiative, if you have no uses of wild shape left, you get a use back. But before I was talking about that conversion of wild shape uses into spell slots, and how before you could do it just once per day. Well, now Archdruid has the Nature Magician component where you get an even better version of that. On top of us keeping the old fantasy of the druidic longevity of once you've reached the point of where you're an Archdruid, your aging, basically slows to a crawl, and you're almost sort of you're like a treant, where you can hang around in the woods for many decades.
And it's always such a nice narrative hook, especially for the end of a campaign, if you're playing a druid and you get to 20th level, because you're the character that might see, in like kind of the post story, right? The epilogue. You're the character that might see everyone grow old and pass away, and see their children grow up and their grandchildren grow up, and you can kind of be the narrative hook for what happens after the story is over.
And so what all of these new elements bring to the druid is you have way more control now as a druid player to chart your course.
Yeah.
Whether, again, you want to focus more on spellcasting, on weapon use, or a combination of the two. It's up for you to decide. And you also get to weave into that how you want to use your wild shape. Are you going to have a wild companion? You have more options as a druid than ever before.
And you also have a new cantrip, Starry Wisp.
Yes, the druid, like all of our spellcasting classes, gets to enjoy some brand new spells. And
if you want to see what the playtest version of Starry Wisp was, it was one of the spells that was introduced in the playtest. So you can take a look at it. Of course, I can't tell you if it landed in the exact same position or not.
In the druid's case, there's not only Starry Wisp, but also the new Elementalism cantrip, which allows the druid and others who have it to shape elements in various ways.
And the Elementalism cantrip in the playtest was largely taken from, I think, the monks, Four Elements monk had this Elementalism thing that was like a cantrip, and they basically converted it into a spell that druids will have as well.
And Starry Wisp, going back to it, is a really nice ranged cantrip for druids.
Let's talk about the Circle of the Moon.
So the Circle of the...
Okay, so we're done talking about the base class. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to acknowledge some questions that were not answered, and I can't answer them. I'm sorry. So if you leave me questions like that in the comments, there's nothing I can say. But I want to at least acknowledge that they have not been answered. So the prohibition on metal armor was not addressed. wild shape, is it going to use templates? Is it going to use stat blocks? Is it going to have a curated list, or just an open list? Is it just beasts that are available? Anything else? Other mechanics in the playtest we saw, you got temporary hit points, but use your own hit points, and how many temporary hit points you get if you do that. All that stuff. He has not given specifics for. So I know a lot of you have questions about that, and unfortunately, you're going to have to wait for some answers. So we're going to move on to Circle of the Moon, which I've got lined up. Maybe we'll get some more information about Wild Shape right here, because of course Circle of the Moon is a Wild Shape-based subclass.
The Moon is the subclass of the 4 that is most concerned about Wild Shape.
Yeah.
This is the subclass that allows you to take the utility of Wild Shape and give it a reliable combat dimension. Because most druids, they certainly could use Wild Shape for fighting, but often they're going to be better off relying on their spells in combat and using Wild Shape largely for utility purposes, whether it's to fly or climb or sneak into a place. Circle of the Moon, though, is all about changing into a beast form and fighting in that form. And so with that in mind, we have introduced a number of enhancements in Circle of the Moon. We've made it so that in their circle forms feature, their AC is more reliable than it was before, because before, when they transformed into a beast, they had to use the beast's AC, and sometimes the beast's armor class was actually lower than the druid's armor class.
Right. More than sometimes, almost always lower than the druid's armor class. Like the classic form for a level 2 druid is to take the brown bear, and I think the brown bear has an 11 armor class, if memory serves. I mean, I would hope your druid has more than an 11 armor class.
And because we want you to be able to comfortably keep fighting in your beast forms, even at higher level, we introduced this new ability to use either an AC equal to 13 plus your wisdom mod, or the AC in the beast, whichever one.
And I would imagine 100% of the time, I'm tempted to say 99%, that 13 plus your wisdom modifier, you're a druid, hopefully you're concentrating on wisdom, that should be higher, right? I would think at level 3, when you first get the subclass, you're probably looking at a +3 wisdom modifier. So that's 16 armor class, and I can't think of any beasts off the top of my head that are above that. Certainly none at the lower challenge ratings. So yeah, and I think this also makes it clear as well that he's saying that you're choosing either the beast's armor class or this armor class. In other words, we're looking at beast's stat blocks here. So that probably answers a question some of you have as well, as to whether they were going to go for templates or stat blocks. And I think they had already confirmed that they were going with stat blocks, but now it's confirmed again.
Is higher,
yeah,
so that you can hopefully withstand those hits in your beast form. You also gain temporary hit points now when you transform. Now, this is true actually of all druids when they shapeshift using Wild Shape, but the Circle of the Moon druid gets even more temporary hit points. And the gain of temporary hit points in Wild Shape replaces what it used to do with beast hit points, because it used to be that in Wild Shape that you would transform into a critter and essentially have a new hit point pool. Yeah. And then when that critter's hit point pool got zeroed out, you would then move back to your other hit point pool. That actually created a number of issues for other parts of the game system, because there are a number of things in the game that are triggered by someone dropping to 0 hit points.
Right.
And we didn't actually want those things to be triggered when a Druid's beast form reaches 0.
Yeah.
So we've made that system issue go away by now having Wild Shape simply give you some temporary hit points when you transform, but you keep using, as a Druid, your own hit points.
And you can
And I'm so glad he's talking more about Wild Shape here, because when he was talking about the base Druid, he didn't say a whole lot. So yes, that is a huge change from the old Wild Shape. Now, we saw this in the playtest, but when you Wild Shape as a Druid, you no longer replace your hit points with the hit points of the beast. Instead, you are going to be using your own hit points, and then transforming is going to give you a certain amount of temporary hit points. And maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. I don't know if he told you exactly how many, so neither will I.
maintain that form using your own hit points.
Yes.
So when those temporary hit points go away, it doesn't knock you out of the form.
So Wild Shape now also, for all Druids, lasts longer than it used to. Because you used to be knocked out of the form when you lost the hit points of the creature. And that combo, of course, still is not the case because you don't have that creature's hit points anymore.
Right.
You simply get temporary hit points. And as you mentioned, you are not knocked out of Wild Shape when you lose those temporary hit points. The Circle of the Moon now also has a feature that called Circle of the Moon spells that gives them a list of spells that they can cast even while they are in their beast forms. This is a fun new enhancement for them. They used to have the ability, while they were in beast form in 2014, to heal themselves while they were in beast form. We decided to supercharge that by replacing that feature with a list of spells, including Cure Wounds, so they still have the option of casting a healing spell on themselves while they're in beast form. But now they also, of course, have the option with that spell to heal somebody else. They can also cast Moonbeam, Starry Wisp, and at higher levels, conjure animals, Fount of...
Yeah, that was a big one. So yeah, you can cast Conjure Animals Wild Shape now as a Moon Druid once you get it. And I'm going to go back because he's about to mention another interesting spell for them.
Cast Moonbeam, Starry Wisp, and at higher levels, conjure animals, Fount of Moonlight, which is another brand new spell.
Fount of Moonlight is interesting.
And Mass Cure Wounds. We did this because we wanted there to be also more of the moon flavor in Circle of the Moon. And so you'll see throughout that you're not only transforming, but you are essentially illuminated by this lunar magic. And the reason why we've always associated the moon with the shape-shifting of the subclass is partly because of the classic folkloric thing of the moon, causing werewolves and others to transform.
Yeah.
And that's why those two elements are combined in this subclass. So at higher levels...
Okay, so Fount of Moonlight is brand new spell. Conjure Animals was very changed in the playtest. I can't tell you where it landed, but Fount of Moonlight, if you look in the playtest, it was a brand new spell, and it increased the damage you did with your attacks. One of the complaints about Moon Druids is once you get to a certain level, they can't keep up on damage. So being able to cast spells like that while you're wild-shaped is quite an enhancement.
You also now have the option of having your beast form attacks deal radiant damage. Again, this this lunar theme. And also you have enhanced saving throws. You will also then at level 10 with Moonlight Step, you can start teleporting as a bonus action while you are really leaning into the power of your subclass. And one of the nice things about...
On top of that, you also get advantage when you do that teleport
and
on your next attack roll.
The nice thing, too, about Moonlight Step is this does not require you to be in beast form. Because we wanted to make sure that you also we're getting a feature that wasn't relying on beast form.
Right.
Even though this subclass is primarily about using wild shape, we wanted you to have at least one cool thing you could do even when you're in your non-beast form.
Yeah, and then there's no traffic jam of you trying to turn into your beast form ahead of time if you wanted to use this ability, because those are both bonus actions.
Then at level 14, you're going to get lunar form, which means that when you attack in a wild shape, you're going to deal extra radiant damage. And also, when you use that Moonlight Step ability, you will be able to not only teleport yourself, but one willing creature. So bring along a friend.
Yeah, perfect. All right, let's talk about Circle.
Okay, so we're done talking about Circle of the Moon. So I'm glad he gave us some more information about Wild Shape. There was more yet he could have said. One thing he has already said in a previous video, so I will reference it now, is he mentioned that that the player's handbook would have a selection of stat blocks in it for creatures that were essentially going to be used by characters. So, the Sphinx of Wonder we have seen, it's going to be a familiar that warlocks can select. So that's why its stat block is going to be in the player's handbook. And we have a selection of beasts there. And Jeremy Crawford said those would be useful for druids. However, it is only a starting group for Circle of the Moon druids, and they will probably be needing to access the monster manual for their higher level forms. So he's already said that, so I'm just repeating it. So what that means is if you want to play a Moon Druid, you will be shopping the monster manual at higher levels at least. And there's not really a way to avoid that. Now, until the new monster manual comes out, I assume the intention is that you would use the existing monster manual. So just want to clarify that, because he has already said that, but he didn't repeat himself here.
Of the Land for the Druid.
Circle of the Land is the Druid subclass that is all about your spell casting. And we have enhanced this subclass in a number of significant ways. One of the biggest ways we have enhanced it is right away when you get the subclass. It used to be that you selected a type of land that your druid was connected to, and that gave you an expanded spell list. That was cool, but it meant you were sort of locked in. And we really wanted to amp up this sense that as a member of this subclass, you are kind of like the ultimate nature magician. And so to support that, we've now made it so that every time you finish a long rest is when you choose the type of land that you are connected to.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so now, every time you finish a long rest, you choose arid land, polar land, temperate land, or tropical land, and that gives you a set of spells that are available to you for that day. And again, you could change every day which of those you want to be connected to, or if you have a strong thematic reason to be connected to just one, you also have the option to always be connected to one of these land types. But we wanted to give you more flexibility as a Circle of the Land druid. And we also, in creating...
Yeah, so with the Circle of the Land spells, as he said, you can now, like, if you look at 2014, you selected one and you got, you got one spell when you started, one spell at 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th, I think 5 spells eventually that you had prepared all the time. And the lists were, some were good, some weren't. Then now you are going to have a choice of 4 different selections of these 5 spells to pick each time you finish a long rest. And looking at these lists, they all have good spells on them. Now, I'll just say that. Not every spell, but every single one has at least one juicy spell on there that you might want for that day. So that's a pretty big improvement to the Land Druid right there.
these 4 new lists, also optimize them so that they each have sort of spicy, really good reasons for you to select them.
Yeah, so he's just repeating what I just said. They all have at least one really good spell on there.
This is one of my favorite abilities. We have Land's Aid.
So Land's Aid is a brand new feature in Circle of the Land that gives the Circle of the Land Druid a new way to use their wild shape. Because they are the spellcasting focused Druid, we didn't want them to feel like their wild shape was sort of sitting there unused, even though, yes, they could use it to get a wild companion. We wanted to give them a way to use wild shape that really speaks to their subclass fantasy. And so that's what Land's Aid is all about. You can burn wild shape uses to cause this eruption of nature magic that both, as you said, harms enemies, but also can heal somebody, and really speaks to the two sides of Druidic magic, because Druidic magic is, yes, about healing, but also about elemental destruction. And so Land's Aid was really a fun, brand new feature for us to provide in this subclass.
I always like to be able to harvest my enemies for hit points.
But then we keep going on really leaning into the Circle of the Land being a...
I think he's done talking about Land's Aid. So he didn't really go into the specifics on the mechanics. And so neither will I, but what I will do is talk about the mechanics that we saw in the playtest 6, I believe. And you can download these for free on D&D Beyond if you want to take a look at them. But I will tell you what was in the playtest. In the playtest with Land's Aid, you could use your wild shape. It was a magic action. You chose a point within 60 feet, created a 10-foot radius sphere. Each creature of your choice in the sphere made a Constitution saving throw, and if they failed, they took 2d6 necrotic damage on a failed save, half on a success. And one creature of your choice within the sphere regained 2d6 hit points, and that scaled with your level. So that's what Land's Aid did in the playtest. And at this point, I can't reveal whether it had any changes when it hit the player's handbook.
Consummate nature magician in natural recovery. This already in 2014 allowed the Druid to gain some spell slots back, but we've also now made it that with this you can cast one of your level 1 spells from your circle spell feature without expending a spell slot. So in a way, it's stretching your spell slots out even more than it did in 2014. Then in Nature's Ward at level 10, you not only are going to get a damage resistance that is associated with the land type you chose for your earlier feature, Circle of the Land spells, but you are also now immune to the poison condition with this feature. A real quick go back to the amazing flexibility this subclass now has, because not only do you get to choose the list of spells that you're getting each day from your Circle of the Land spells feature, but when you reach level 10, that choice each day then is also determining a damage resistance that you're getting. Finally, Nature's Sanctuary also has brand new design for this Druid at level 14, where you have yet another non-shape-shifting use for your wild shape,
right,
where you can cause trees and vines to erupt in an area, giving you and your allies half cover, and also sharing with all of your allies in that area the resistance you currently have from your Nature's Ward.
That's fantastic.
This subclass has enough change.
Yeah, so I think they're done actually talking about Circle of the Land. So that last feature he talked about, we saw, he's describing what we saw in the playtest as well. So what should be apparent is that if you saw the Circle of the Land subclass in playtest 6 and you liked it, I certainly liked it. I think you're going to be pretty happy with what you get in the Player's Handbook.
That it really is in the category of almost a brand new subclass.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, again, that wish fulfillment. Like, this is causing...
Yeah, and, that this actually kind of brings me back to yesterday when we were talking about the Archfey Patron Warlock and the Great Old One Patron for Warlock, being, kind of lackluster subclasses that really needed like a brand new subclass assigned to the name. Circle Land is kind of the same thing. I always found it lackluster, and this is not lackluster.
These trees and these vines to grow to protect all of your friends. That is a classic feeling Druid trope, right?
And especially for the Circle of the Land. This is for any player who really has come to the Druid to lean all the way in on the nature magic. And this Druid in particular, if they wanted to, could burn through all their wild shape uses and never turn into an animal, or turn into an animal. It's player's choice.
It's a very easy autumn Halloween vibe. Druid, if you wanted to play it that way.
Let's talk about the Circle of the Sea, which is a brand new subclass in this book. So this subclass is all about not only channeling the magic of oceans, but also of storms.
Yeah.
We realized when we were building out the quartet of subclasses for every class in this book that the Druid, with its Circle of the Land and Circle of the Moon, and then we also knew we wanted to bring in the Circle of the Stars, we were missing when it comes to sort of the terrestrial side of the Druid's fantasy. We were missing a subclass that had to do with oceans.
Yeah.
And so that's what this subclass is all about. And so you see that in the Circle of the Sea spells that they have access to, where again it's this mix of aquatic and stormy themes. And we wanted to connect these two because not only are storms so often associated with oceans in our world, we also wanted to make sure that this Druid had things in their kit that are useful even when they are far away from a body of water. Essentially, the storm component was critical to make sure we did not have an Aquaman problem. Because that is always the danger.
That is always the danger.
with an aquatic themed character option in D&D is you don't want to have a situation where the character feels like they have nothing to offer unless they're in or near a body of water.
Because then it's very easily, as a dungeon master, like you are either having to...
And so he's telling you that you're going to get extra spells as a Circle of the Sea Druid. We saw this in the playtest. And I will say that the spell selection here definitely gives a stormy theme. There's no question about that. I could look at this not knowing the subclass and think, does this have something to do with storms? For sure.
Fine pools of water. Or the dungeon master forgets, and then you don't get to be, the core of what you are trying to play.
Exactly. So to lean into that, having something you can do no matter where you are, we right away at level 3 in this subclass give you a feature called Wrath of the Sea. And just as the Circle of the Land has ways to use their wild shape that are other than transforming into an animal, and we'll see this theme repeated yet again when we get to Circle of the Stars, the Circle of the Sea Druid can expend...
I mean, he's made a point there that I think I should stop on and now confirm, is that one of the questions I was asked was, are other druids going to have other uses of wild shape? Like druids that aren't moon druids, because of course moon druids, their thing is they take the wild shape feature and they make it more powerful, but the other subclasses can't do that. And so for other subclasses using the 2014 rules, sometimes those, especially with something like Circle of the Land, where it was designed before they got into this new idea that we would give wild shape different things it could do, those wild shape uses sometimes felt pretty useless. Like, of course they have utility use, but they don't always have utility use. It depends what you're up to, right? So they have this resource they couldn't really use in any effective way. So he is confirming here that, yeah, Moon Druids, you get super wild shape. Circle of the Land, we saw 2 different ways they can use wild shape. And we're going to see other ways that Circle of the Sea can use wild shape. And I mean, in Tasha's, we saw that Circle of the Stars has another way to use wild shape. So if you are not playing a Circle of the Moon Druid, yeah, you can do wild shape. Yeah, you can do wild companion. You'll have at least one other option for wild shape that is appropriate to your subclass.
The use of wild shape as a bonus action to manifest this sort of swirling, stormy ocean spray around themselves that relies on, like the Paladin's aura does on the new emanation area of effect. While this is blasting around you, you can, once per turn, cause it to sort of storm up and force a target to make a Constitution saving throw. And if they fail, they're going to take some cold damage from this very chilly ocean spray, and you can also potentially hurl them away from you. So very dynamic. It's essentially a way for you to bring the ocean with you.
Yes.
This is also a way that we are avoiding the Aquaman problem.
Yeah.
Bring it with you, my friend.
And it's a great spell list too. We've got Fog Cloud, Gust of Wind, Ray of Frost, Shatter, Thunderwave, Lightning Bolt.
Yes.
Water Breathing, Control Water, Ice Storm, Conjure Elemental, Hold Monster.
All right, I don't have to be cagey anymore about the spell list because he just told you what it is. That's great. Okay, so that's the list, and very storm related. One thing that is less storm related than we saw in the playtest is the change is that Sleet Storm used to be on this list, and that's been replaced with Water Breathing. So that is a change from the playtest. You'll know that if you were following the playtest that Circle of the Sea got Water Breathing from a different feature. Obviously, they don't get it from that feature anymore. Now they just get it from their circle spells. And we saw the same thing yesterday. Which one was it? It was a Great Old One, where there was a spell that another feature gave you, which was Summon Aberration, and it became one of their domain spells, or not domain spell, patron spells. Which means, basically, they're saying, if we're going to give you extra spells, we're going to put them on this spell list. We're not going to then throw more spells onto other features. But yeah, when we're talking about spells like Lightning Bolt and Fog Cloud, and Gust of Wind, and Thunder Wave and Ice Storm, definitely there is a stormy theme there.
These are all fantastic spells to have.
Yes, yeah. This was the Circle of the Sea Druid is going to be extremely formidable.
Yeah.
And you see that at level 6.
And I should mention, too, Wrath of the Sea. So we saw this in the playtest, of course. And it has been changed. And he confirmed that you might have caught that he said that you are doing cold damage. That wasn't the case in the playtest. In the playtest, you did thunder damage. So it is not precisely the same as it was in the playtest.
Where then your Wrath of the Sea emanation gets even bigger. So you will have even more target options as your little mini ocean blasts people around you.
It increases by 10 feet.
Yes.
Which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then you also gain a swim speed equal to your speed. You are layering on more to your base abilities here.
And then that theme continues at level 10 with Stormborn, while your Wrath of the Sea is active, then you also gain a fly speed equal to your speed.
And that's really nice. I play tested this subclass, and I play tested at a level where I got the fly speed, and that's a nice inclusion.
And you have resistance to cold, lightning, and thunder damage.
Because remember, this is, at least in the playtest, it was not concentration. That's concentration free flight.
So you're just going to turn into this
And resistance to 3 damage types, which is pretty substantial.
walking, swimming, and flying
Storm. Yeah.
and with swirling ocean waters around you. And then at level 14, with the feature Oceanic Gift, you now have the option to manifest that moving oceanic storm around somebody else.
My wife and I are very obsessed with the fog. John Carpenter's The Fog. We're like, ooh, we can make a really creepy druid out of this one, where it's this fog constantly swirling around you.
Well, welcome to Circle of the Sea.
Yeah.
Circle of the Stars is...
All right, so that's Circle of the Sea. Yeah, so it's not going to be exactly the same as you saw it in the playtest. But it is very similar. Like, if you read the playtest, you're going to get a pretty good idea of how this subclass is going to function.
A really lovely subclass that we introduced in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This is all about drawing your powers from the nature that is up there. So Circle of the Land is all about the nature that's under your feet. Circle of the Sea, all about the powers of nature in oceans and in the storms associated with them. Circle of the Moon, now, we now start looking up toward the sky, is about how the powers above affect the druid themselves. And then the Circle of the Stars, in a way, the camera pans back to look at the entire night sky and the forces of nature up there, and how the druid can draw those forces down to help people, to harm people, and also gain glimpses into the future by reading the stars above. Other than shifting the levels around so that you get the subclass features at level 3, this is largely going to be what people saw in Tasha's Cauldron, but again,
But enhanced by the core class.
Exactly. So
And notice his words there, it's largely going to be the same. So if you read Tasha's and you've played Circle of the Stars, be assured what you're going to get is going to be very similar, but maybe not exactly the same.
Circle of the Stars in this book is now better because of the core class that it is attached to.
Right.
Because you can now take Circle of the Stars and integrate it with those choices, those primal order choices you're making in the base class, how you're deciding to use your wild shape. And Circle of the Stars, of course, gives you yet more ways to use your wild shape as you manifest different starry powers based on the constellations you decide to manifest. I think even people who have already been playing Circle of the Stars are going to feel that this is the best version of the subclass they've encountered yet, because again of how it benefits from the new Druid base class.
I also like the idea of a benevolent stars druid out there, the light that is in the darkness. But in between those stars is the great old one, Warlock. And looking around.
And of course, you want to bring everything back,
to the Warlock.
It's not all about the Warlock.
It
Todd.
is. This is clearly the enemy of the Warlock.
It's not a PvP game.
Yeah.
They're friends.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lots of huge changes for the Druid. I know people are extremely excited for this.
So, future me, there is an article up on D&D Beyond before I finish my video, so I can actually include a bunch of information that they didn't share in the video. So, this is up on D&D Beyond. You can check it yourself if you want, but Wild Shape, we're going to get some real answers. So, here we got Wild Shape rule, 2014 Wild Shape, 2024 Wild Shape. So using Wild Shape used to be an action, now it will be a bonus action. Number of uses used to be 2, and then unlimited at level 20, which was awful with Moon Druids, and then not very good for any other Druid. Then 2024, 2 uses starting at level 2, 3 at level 6, 4 at 17. replenishing uses. Used to get them all back after short or long rest. Now you get one after short rest and all after a long rest. Then, of course, you can use Wild Resurgence to expend spell slots to get additional uses back. Or you can go the other way and spend a Wild Shape and get a spell slot. And then it says at level 20, when you roll initiative and you have no uses of Wild Shape, you regain one use. So you'll always have at least one anytime you enter a combat. Hit points in Wild Shape. When you transform, you assume the hit points and the hit dice of the beast in 2014. Now, when you transform, you gain temporary hit points equal to your Druid level. So we got the exact number there. That's great. And remember, he said Moon Druids get more than that. But that's what you get if you're not a Moon Druid. Then Beast Form limitations. So in 2014, you had CR 1/4, no swim or fly speed at level 2. Level 4, CR 1/2, no fly speed. Level 8, you could do up to CR 1, and you could do any kind of movement. Had to be a creature you had seen before. I forgot to mention the importance of that one. What a terrible rule that was, because there was no way to know what you had seen before other than what you've experienced in gameplay. But if you're a druid, presumably you've seen animals before your first session, and your ability to speak is limited to the capabilities of your beast form. So now, level 2, CR 1/4, no fly speed for 4 known forms. So in the playtest, we saw the known forms chart. Now you know, it's still there. Level 4, CR 1/2, no fly speed, 6 known forms. CR 1 and 8 known forms at level 8. When you finish a long rest, you replace one known form with an eligible one, and you can speak in beast form. Then damage in Wild Shape. The old version, you just basically used your stat block. And then now you can select the option of Primal Strike at level 7, which adds to your beast form damage. You do an additional d8 of cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. When you hit a creature using a weapon or beast form attack, damage type is chosen on a hit, and it increases to 2d8 at level 15. And then Moon Druids, as Jeremy Crawford said, will be getting even additional damage bonuses. Then Wild Companion, the only difference from the Tasha's version is not only can you use Wild Shape to do Find Familiar, you can also use a spell slot now to just cast Find Familiar. Alright, so let's see what else they got. As they mentioned in the video, you will be getting temporary hit points when you use your Wild Shape, but losing those temporary hit points does not knock you out of your Wild Shape form. So now let's talk about the specifics for Moon Druids. So we know with Circle Forums, he talked about armor class in the video, and you're going to get 3 times your Druid level in temporary hit points. So that's the number they ended up landing on for temporary hit points for Moon Druids. So it says 9 temporary hit points at level 3, all the way to 60 temporary hit points at level 20. And another change from the playtest is been revealed here as well. I couldn't talk about it during the reaction video because Jeremy Crawford didn't mention it. But Lunar Form at level 14 in the playtest added 1d10 radiant damage to your hits, now 2d10, so it's doubled. So a lot more information there about Wild Shape. Thank you, D&D Beyond, and Riley Silverman for putting up this article that gives us so much more information that we could actually now talk about this feature, knowing the rules is how they work. And I also want to do a shout out to Sir Atlas on my Discord, who linked this article for me so I could share it with you. So let's go back to the reaction. Okay, so still lots of questions are unanswered. So where did the conjure spells land? We don't know yet. The new spells like Fountain Moonlight and Starry Wisp, they didn't go into details. Obviously they're in the game, right? They gave you some details about how Wild Shape is going to work now, with it using temporary hit points. You keep your own hit points. It's a bonus action. And, I think it's better in this version than in the 2014 Player's Handbook. It wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. I'm going to say that, especially with the Moon Druid needing to, after your starting package is done and you're leveling up, you're going to need to shop the monster manual. I really was hoping that wouldn't be the case, but it is going to be the case. So, I didn't get everything I wanted, but then again, people want different things, and other people are going to be really happy with that change or that being the same. So, you overall, I look at it it's better than it was. Moon Druid is definitely better than it was. I thought the old Moon Druid had some really wonky power advancement issues. They just didn't scale at the same rate as the rest of your party did. And I need to punch math to see if that's been completely corrected or largely corrected, but I do think it has moved in the right direction. As for Circle of Stars, I've always thought it was a good subclass. I still think it's a good subclass. Circle of the Sea looks cool. I really liked it in the playtest. I still really like it. Circle of the Land looks cool. It's like a brand new subclass. It's a subclass that really needed improvement, and it got it. And I'm very excited for that one as well. Also was really happy with it in the playtest, and am still very happy with it. The base Druid, the stuff like being able to focus on magic more or martial capability more. I like that kind of customization, and that's new, and I appreciate it being there. But there's a lot to talk about. The thing about the Druid is that if we were to talk about it 2 years ago, we're talking about conjure animals because it's just such an impactful spell. You take it and then you absolutely kind of mob the battlefield. Not necessarily table friendly, but very, very powerful. So what are they going to do with that was a big question. And then we got playtest 8 and we saw the new conjure animals. And I hope at some point they tell you officially what has happened with those spells, because I think they are very important to knowing where the Druid is going to be going forward. They also didn't answer any questions about prohibition on metal armor. I hope they clear that up as well. But I'm definitely happier with the Druid in this Player's Handbook, including all 4 subclasses, than I was in 2014. No question about it. In 2014, I mean, the subclasses you got in Player's Handbook were the Moon Druid and the Land Druid. And the Land Druid was boring and ineffectual, and the Moon Druid had like really wonky mechanics. And it looks like both of those things are better, and now we've got 2 additional subclasses that look like worthy choices. So I definitely think the Druid is in a significantly better position than it was. But I wanted templates for Wild Shape. I'm not afraid to say it. But I lost that war. And so, yeah, that is the Druid. And tomorrow they will be covering the Wizard. And I'm really curious here because with the Wizard, even more than the Druid, like I was just talking about conjure animals and its importance to the Druid. The Wizard is all about spells, right? That's the identity of the Druid, is they are the ultimate spellcaster in the game. I am hoping that they might reveal some rules about spells, about spellcasting in general, about individual spells. I really hope they do. I don't know if they will or not. But if any of these classes, they're going to do that, I would think it might be the Wizard. So fingers crossed. I guess we'll see tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching. And yeah, I will be back tomorrow.